Well, that's a fitting image for the mood today in the UK, isn't it, AJ? I'm Alex here. Welcome, and AJ, PTE, welcome to the program. Wow, we got a lot to talk
Good,
about today, don't we?
yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Alex. Good morning to all of the moderators here, Bridget, Quantum, and a few others. And of course, you can see by the image how bleak and miserable and grey London looks. And we still haven't even hit winter yet, and you can see how miserable it looks with those pictures. And these pictures are live as well. They're not like photo image. But
Yeah,
yeah, we've got a lot to talk about.
we thought we would show our respect to
Yep,
start the
yep.
show. But as you guys know, AJ and I, we are very respectful guys. But we did take a moment of silence before the show here to have our condolences to the royal family. But this is not just your ordinary royal family. This is a royal family that is covered in controversy and continues to be covered in controversy to this day. It's unfortunate they probably lost one of the most iconic members of their family. And I think one of the members of their family that was duly respected and trusted the most, the bond that held the family together. Now, what is this family going to get up to without proper, we'll call it parenting, as they hand the reins over to Charles, who also comes with a very, very, very controversial past. We don't really need to remind the viewers of how much controversy him and Diana brought on this world with so much pain and misery. And this continues to this day, AJ. I mean, you're in the United Kingdom now.
Sure.
Tell me, I mean, I'm not, as the Queen was also our Queen in Canada as well. Actually, not just the head of state there, but she actually is declared the Queen as we became sovereign in Canada. And we, as you see, our Canadian flag has the maple leaf. It used to have the
Yeah.
Union Jack on our flag as well.
Yeah.
That was removed as Canada wanted more sovereignty and more independence. Even though it stayed part of the Commonwealth, what is that brand really? Here's the first question I'm going to ask you, AJ. What does that Commonwealth brand, and it's a brand, bring nations today that are part of it? Maybe you can help us out with that.
Yeah, it's just I think it just goes back to the slavery days, or we own you. So, you know, even Australia, New Zealand still has the UK flag in the corner. And yeah, I mean, I totally don't agree with it. I mean, the days of colonial past in Britain is long gone. You know, the days where they can dictate how other countries should run their lives and give
Mm.
away their natural resources, give away people for slavery, things like that. I mean, Britain has a very, very dark colonial past, and it all comes down from the royal family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to be trying to be respectful here because I've got nothing
Mm-hmm.
bad to say about the Queen. Obviously, she's passed away and stuff, but this is not about the Queen. This is about the royal family, the monarchy
Mm-hmm.
itself, the Britain's past history. But I think Canada did the right thing, taking away the flag, because it just shows your country is sovereign, independent. You're not like it's like having other countries with an American flag in the corner. I mean, we might as well have as a British flag, have an American flag in the corner because we are, in fact, actual puppets of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it is. It's just way to have those slavery things around your necks,
Mm-hmm.
and just yeah, I just don't think it's right. I think it's time for all these countries to get rid of the British flag from their flags, really.
Mm-hmm. I think, a lot of it's got to do. Now, a few people were asking me today. Of course, the older generation, my mother and people like that, are deeply upset about today. I mean, we can only wish that our mother would live to 96 years old. So the good thing is that she lived a very long life, and being the queen, as a great representative of her country. Now, I had some people in the chats here. They will make some comments about Canada. Canada is not and never been sovereign. That's an interesting comment, and I actually want to kind of address that. That's to Red Pill Scholar, I believe, is here. Well, let's just put it up here. Now, that is definitely up for debate, that kind of comment. There's one thing to say sovereignty means something, and then there's another thing to say that, what is respectfully on the right path to sovereignty. Let's look at Canada here for its history. And I will give you guys just a little bit of a history lesson here. My father served in the Canadian Navy, and my grandfather served in the Canadian Navy as well in the Second World War. We'll call it, he wasn't on a destroyer. He was on a frigate that was kind of chaperoning Newfoundland, people in Newfoundland between the islands. They were chaperoning the civilian boats that would take people to the islands and back. And on one stormy night, that frigate was hit by a German U-boat. Now, let me kind of give you guys a history lesson here. Canadians in history of World War II, I mean, we had at the time the fourth largest navy in the world. And, we were quite active. Now, I want to go into details about this, and just to put this as from a Canadian's standpoint, just so you guys understand where we're coming from. Canada helped a lot in the United Kingdom, and our passports still have the Queen, her letter inside the passports. Every Canadian has a passport, has a letter inside from the Queen. Our currency has the Queen on it. Our roads, a lot of our laws are after the UK. But here's where we lost, I guess, a bit of our identity, and we went on the sovereignty route. Even though she was our queen, we respected her quite, awareness. She was always embraced when she came to Canada. Our media never really attacked the royal family. I can say that. And there was a lot of respect for it. But where it gets confusing is when the United Kingdom joined the European Union. And let's go into a little bit more details. The equal passage of people in the UK, when they opened up the European Union to a lot of countries and allowed that ease of travel, ease of work to approximately 28 nations in the European Union, 27, 28. Canada actually lost the rights to actually work in the United Kingdom around that time. And we thought, well, wait a minute. She's on our currency. We respect her as our queen. We went to war for her. Our country pays her $64 million in payments a year for the luxury of having the monarchy as a part of our Commonwealth of countries. And what's disturbing is, as a Canadian, when I go into the United Kingdom, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys here, okay? When you arrive at the United Kingdom and you're told to go in the other line, that really is symbolic.
Yep.
And that's where I said, wait a minute. And I go back in history. As you guys know, I said before, my father served in the Canadian Navy that actually chaperoned a ship, bringing the Queen Elizabeth into the harbor, the actual ship itself. My parents always taught me to respect the monarchy. But it gets a bit difficult as you get later on into the 1990s, 2000s, 2010, and so on and so forth, where you're kind of been told, hey, guy, other line, hey, guy, you can't work in our country. You can travel and be a tourist. And here's the dynamic thing that I was trying to grapple with here. When they were part of the European Union, I was allowed, because I'm married to a European Union national, but still, even being married to a European national at the time when they were part of the European Union, I still was not considered unless I either A, was working sponsored by a company with or my wife had to put up, I think it was, or I had to put up X amount of capital to prove that I should be worthy to live in the UK. Now, many people might not think that's a big deal, but I think it is a big deal, especially when my ancestors went to war protecting that family. And that's going to resonate. And that has been resonating in a lot of Canadians for years. And they're starting to question, what does that brand really mean? Well, as a Canadian, just for the 2017-2018 data, the Canadian crown was $62,438,557, approximately $1.68 per Canadian per year. I'm wondering for what? AJ?
Yeah, it doesn't really give you any benefits, does it? But
and
yeah,
you were not looking for benefits. We're just looking for respect.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it's another
That's right.
door closed. It's another door closed.
That's right. Yeah. So I just want to talk about quick trivia to our viewers here. How many countries do you think have the British flag on the corner of their national flag right now? And how many do you think there were, say, 50 years ago? So right now we only have four flags: New Zealand, Australia. We have a country called Tuvalu. I've never even heard of this. Tuvalu and
Yeah.
Fiji, and also something called Cook Islands. I don't know if that still exists. But 50 years ago, yeah, 50 years ago, there was 5, 10, 15. There was 20 countries 50 years ago which had the British flag in the corner of their national flag. So over time, that number has gone down to 4. And yeah, like you said, I just don't see the benefit of having that flag in your national flags because you as a country, you don't get any benefit. What do you get? You are part of the Commonwealth, but what do you get as a part of being on the Commonwealth? Do you get any trade deals? Do you get any free access through in terms of visa? Do you get
No,
any
zero.
Yeah. Do you get any
Nothing.
jobs? Nothing. Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly.
That's what bothers me, AJ, is because you see a lot of the people, oh, you're part of the Commonwealth. I get that, but if I'm part of the European Union, at least I know that I have free movement. I can work in another EU company, but Commonwealth, I guess we get an invitation to the Commonwealth Games, I guess. And but after that, really, let's face it, when there's a meeting of the Commonwealths, for example, India would show up. Well, India won't show up to that lately because they're too busy wanting to be part of these other maybe BRICS that are more exciting for them, and they're putting their energy into those.
Yeah.
I think the brand is just it's gone, and
Yeah. I mean, you have to
you're going
look
to see a
over.
power struggle.
Yeah, you have to see over the years, over the last 5, 10 years, how many countries have actually left the Commonwealth? I mean, Jamaica is probably the latest one who decided they don't want to be part of the Commonwealth. They don't want to have
Mm,
anything to do with Britain because obviously you have a very dark past with slavery and things like that. So a lot of these countries who are part of the Commonwealth were forced to be part of the Commonwealth. They were forced, usually by you know they took over that country, took over the natural resources, stole a lot of the natural treasures and stuff like that. It's part of the being colonized, I guess. And one of the things you have to do as being colonized, you got to put the British flag on your corner of your flag. So a lot of these countries are actually bitter of what Britain has done. And countries like
yeah.
Jamaica, who are now standing up and saying, well, we don't want to be part of this. You guys have a very dark history. We want an apology. And they actually said we want an apology from Great Britain for their colonial past.
Mm,
And still to this day, they haven't apologized. Um, so yeah, a lot of these countries, they're very bitter. They're not proud of being part of the Commonwealth. In fact, they want to be out of the Commonwealth. If anything, they want to be, they don't want to be associated with Britain and its past. And nowadays, Britain has no power anyway. So nobody cares about the Commonwealth anymore. Commonwealth has been replaced by many things by the Americans. You got the Five Eyes, you got all of these quads and all of these other, G7 and all of those other groups that have been formed over the years. Nobody even talks about the Commonwealth anymore. When's the last time we had a Commonwealth meeting, and how many people showed up, and when was it covered on the news? Never. Well, the G7's always covered, and it's just it's one of those things that countries don't want to be part of, really.
yeah, it's making for an incredibly challenging time, actually, for the royal family. It really is. If you think about it, they have lost a major part of, and I'm going to use that word, brand, because
Mm,
you have to kind of call it a brand because it is a brand.
yeah,
It's a brand that actually, even to, I mean, it's a family that has the royal jewels, part of the, it's also a family that endorses products. Am I correct on that? I mean, to get your product endorsed by the Queen and
yeah,
by the, I mean, so that brand has lost a major ambassador today.
yeah. It has. Yeah.
And
Well, yeah. Well, I was looking at a news article, and looks like Britain will have to pay almost 100 billion. Like we have the money right now, we just don't have the money. We have to pay over 100 billion to replace all of the banknotes. We have to replace, there's a list here somewhere. We have to replace all of the stamps. We have to replace passports for as well.
where's the outcry from the environment? Where's Greta?
Yeah,
Where's Greta in all of this? Shouldn't Greta be upset that
yeah,
first she should send her condolences, but then she should also be worrying about all the trees that are going to have to be cut down to make paper for the banknotes.
yeah, that's right. Yes, there's so many things that need to be replaced because the Queen's face is almost on everything.
Oh, she's on
In
everything,
in
everything.
Great Britain, there's so much. Yeah, and nobody wants to have. I'm sorry to say, nobody wants to have King Charles on their banknotes because the British people, they're not very fond of King Charles, mainly because of what he did to Princess Diana, and probably was involved in her death, to be honest. Obviously it's a conspiracy and stuff,
Mm.
but the way she died was very suspicious. And
Yeah,
a lot of
it's funny, AJ. I went back and I actually watched a documentary on that, and when you go back and you watch
yeah,
things in history and you say, "Wait a minute, something wasn't right.
yeah, I mean,
Something
you
wasn't
wouldn't
right."
you wouldn't be surprised by the royal family because you have a very colonial past, and they were involved in assassinations all over the world, killing other leaders from other countries. And if they they had a very, very dark colonial past. So you wouldn't be surprised if the British monarchy have some sort of secret police that that nobody can touch, and yeah, they basically have the law in their own hands. And like James Bond, where James Bond has got a license to kill, so James Bond
Mhm.
basically can kill anybody, and he will never go to prison or jail for it. And it's a very similar thing. They have some sort of secret police that they kind of do things around the world. It used to be really bad, obviously, over 100 years ago, where they used to kind of go around. But this is similar to the American FBI and all of these secret organizations.
Yeah, I think AJ, I really think that the royal family is not ready for this. I think that they were on cruise control for quite a long time,
Yeah,
and the queen was keeping it together
yes,
and
yeah, she was,
kind of
she was.
balancing everything out. An extraordinary woman. You gotta, at least,
Yeah,
even if you're not in agreement with the royal family, and trust me, there's a lot of stuff that hits the headlines from them,
yeah,
but this lady definitely was the glue that held it together. It's gone. It's
yeah,
finished.
yeah, definitely. I mean, she was likable. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. British people and people around the world did like the Queen, and she
Mm,
she 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 did hold it together. Nobody said anything bad about her.
hmm.
And but right now, I think the royal family is in major trouble, and I wouldn't be
Yes.
surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people start asking for the monarchy to be abolished. Talking about
Mm,
abolished, I've just sent you
yes.
a link.
Please. Yes. Okay. Let's have a look.
I've just sent you a link. Probably would be
I'll cue that up. One sec.
so. Let's kind of share that with the viewers, and I
Sure.
think there's some adverts in the beginning, so we can probably try and get rid of that. But
Okay. Yeah. One moment. One moment. I'll have a look. Carry on the conversation. I'll cue that up for you, AJ. One moment.
sure,
Okay.
sure. Yeah. So where was I? Oh yeah, so this link is basically about Liz Truss back in her early days when she wanted to abolish the monarchy. And guess what? Liz Truss did. She actually got her wish, because Liz Truss was the Liz Truss was the only outside person who's seen the Queen in the last few days. Normally, the Queen obviously sees her family, her people that work in the palace. She meets them every single day. Liz Truss is the only outsider that the Queen had met. So I'm just thinking whether Liz Truss passed on some sort of disease or something, or shook a hand or something, and gave us something. I just don't know, because that's the only difference. The Queen, she only seen her 2 days ago, and she looked
Mm.
very healthy when she saw her. And I just don't understand how. It's obviously it's a conspiracy. I'm not alleged anything. But the funny thing about this conspiracy is that this clip shows that Liz Truss wanted to end the monarchy when she was young, and she finally has done it, I guess.
Mm. Okay, I'm gonna queue up this file for you here.
Sure.
Is this the are we talking about let's have a look here. I just can't seem to get this setting up here to share it. Uh let's try it again here. Is this the one with the in 1994? Is that the one you're
Yeah,
talking
that's the
about?
one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
All right. I will bring it up here. 1 second here. You see what you're talking about here. Okay, let's crank this up here. Okay, here we go.
With University Liberal Democrats, and would Norman Baker stand by, please?
I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but
everybody in Britain should have the chance to be a somebody. But only one family can provide the head of state. We Liberal Democrats believe in opportunity for all. We believe in fairness and common sense. We believe in referenda on major constitutional issues. We do not believe that people should be born to rule, or that they should put up and shut up about decisions that affect their everyday lives. Do you, conference, believe that? Do you? I was being interviewed by Newsnight earlier this afternoon. And we were filmed asking members of the public what they thought about the monarchy. We came across a group of 3 people. I'd say they were around 50, 60, looked fairly middle class, rather smart, in fact, rather reactionary, to be perfectly frank. We asked them their opinion of the monarchy. Do you know what they said? They said, abolish them. We've had enough. But believe it or not, conference, they didn't say this once. We met another group of people and another group of people, and all three groups of people said, abolish the monarchy. In fact, conference, we couldn't find a single monarchist outside the royal pavilion. How ironic. I believe that the disillusioned of Brighton.
Yeah, I think that's it. Alex.
Okay.
You get the
Well.
picture. She's basically trying to say, abolish the monarchy. And
She's got a little bit of an explaining to do, I
Yeah,
think, to Charles, huh?
yeah, that's right. And then she goes and meets the Queen, and 2 days later, the Queen is dead. So obviously, I'm just. This is only like
I get it. I know.
conspiracy, guys. Obviously it's not true. I'm just having it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment. It's not really.
But
obviously,
the interesting thing, AJ, about that is if you look at it and you see a person that is of public, a public, she's the Prime Minister of the UK right now. I
Yep.
mean, go back, look at how she was talking. Okay, you're having a person like this now, run your country, can turn the blind eye. We'll call it. Can turn the blind eye to what's happening, and then goes on national television yesterday saying, "Don't worry, we will give you a electricity cap." And do the British people think that? Does she really think the average British person is that stupid to not understand that electricity bill's gone up from maybe £80 to £120 to £200, and then they're told, "Well, don't worry, it's okay, we'll cap it at that." And then you talk about your gas bill on top of that. We're talking, if somebody was even on benefits, that's 50 to 60% of their benefits, just keeping the lights and the heat on. I mean, to make that promise, and then at the same time know that the oil and gas companies, which rightfully so, they got into this business to make profit. They're not there to make friends. They're reaping, tens of billions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars from some of the figures that have been thrown around here. And they're saying, well, are you going to tax that? Are you going to take the VAT off? No. We'll just, we'll let them do what they do. That's not a solution. I mean, it's
not a solution. It's
I don't know why.
Yeah. I made a video about this, Alex, yesterday, and I explained it in really great detail how this decision will destroy UK. So basically, what she's saying is the electricity bills and gas bills are rising, and they'll rise to a cap of 2,500. That 2,500 is a rise of 57% compared to last year. So
insanity.
People still have to pay. But what this means that people will not have to pay more than that. So the problem is the gas prices and electricity prices are still rising to this day, and they are saying the figures of 200 to 300 billion she has to come out with to pay for that difference. But the problem is not many people understand that this is like a bank loan. She has to borrow this money. She can't get it from anywhere. She has reduced the taxes, so she's going to get less tax benefits because she's going to reduce the taxes. But she said, coming out saying this is going to be money that she's going to borrow. So when you borrow this kind of money, when you borrow 200 or 300 billion, eventually you got to pay it back. And Britain borrowed Britain borrowed 300-400 billion when it came to obviously the virus, and now they have to borrow another 200-300 billion. When is this going to end? And Britain has been printing money like crazy, and this is one of the reasons why British inflation has been going crazy. I mean, they're hiding the official figures, but the official figures they're saying is between it's around 18% or something, which is the highest in the developed countries. Is the highest. America is about 9-10%. Europe is just between 15% to
Mhm.
18%, and Britain is 18 to 20%. And they're hiding the official figures, because if you go out every single day and go to the shops, go to the supermarket, prices are not going up 18%. Prices are going up 100%. Things are doubling in price. Everything that you bought last year, now you'll see double. Your gas prices are double. Your electricity prices are double. Everything has doubled in price in UK. So this 18%, they're hiding the true figures. But yeah, the point is, she's borrowing money and she's going to be printing more money for this. And guess who's going to be suffering? You know, eventually when you borrow that much money, eventually when you print that much money, who suffers end of the day? It's the future generation who has to pay back. You know, it's the people, it's the inflation that's going to rise. And, you know, this is going to cause much more problems. I mean, anybody can be a leader and say, all right, I'm going to, guess what, Alex, I'm going to borrow 500 billion pounds to fix the economy. How's that? You know, and anyone can borrow money to kind of do stuff with it, but it's what you do with that money that makes a difference. So the problem is borrowing this much money and paying for all of these executives in, you know, these gas oil companies, because they have made a 170 billion windfall of the last few years. These oil and gas companies, what she should have done is she should have got the money from them, or nationalized the, you know, the British gas, British um, oil companies, like the same thing that the French have done. The French have nationalized the energy sector. So all of this money that she's borrowing is going to be going into the pockets of all these executive shareholders for British Gas, for BP, for Shell. So she is saving these companies more, and then eventually the British public will eventually have to pay this back. They will have to pay it back either by money printing, which increases the inflation, which hits the, you know, everyday people, or they're going to have to increase the taxes, which hits the people as well. But the only people that are happy about it, only people who don't get affected or going to make a profit, are the shareholders and the executives. So all of this money is just going to go back into the people who are richer, and the poorer will just get poorer, and that's how it works, Alex. Unfortunately, you know, this is not going to work. This is, in fact, it's going to be a disaster. Oh, Alex, you're on mute.
I want to add to this story here, AJ. You can see here, Europe's energy crisis could escalate if the government doesn't cover the 1.5 trillion in margin calls. Now that is a black swan event waiting to happen here.
Yep.
You got to remember that some of these energy companies have bought future contracts on the price of oil, natural gas, and all these things. And as I was saying, and we spoke about a few months ago about the price of natural gas when it gets above, you know, the number 8, that really affects the trading of the natural gas contracts. Now, I'm a derivative trader part-time. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I know very well that, just one second. I know very well that these can spiral out of control, and especially when you're talking about the margin calls and derivatives. The derivatives market is basically what makes the stock market go. And the moment that you start messing with, you know, 1 trillion in margin calls, that is extremely, extremely dangerous for a market. Now they might be getting by buying more futures or you know, covering these trades, but that gets very, very complicated. But out there in the market, there is 1.5 trillion. Now that can escalate quickly, fast. If some banks, depends who's footing these margin calls. Is it electricity companies? Is it governments? Somebody's going to have to be bailed out here, and it's looming. They've been kicking the can down the block for many years, it looks like, on this situation. But I want to go into a little bit further conversation about Liz Truss here. They're talking about a cap on individual energy bills. What about the companies? What about the restaurants? What about the pubs? And just before I forget, I do want to say a big hello to our Facebook followers. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we have over 1.9 million Facebook followers on our iChongqing channel. We've just connected them into the program today. So a big hello to everybody that's joining us. That's quite a large audience we have on Facebook. So we just wanted to welcome you to our program today. I know that a lot of you are on Facebook, or pardon me, on YouTube that have come to this program, but we also have brought in quite a large audience on Facebook as well. So back to what we were talking about. So you got to think about this. Here's a lady that's just taken over as prime minister of the country, says, no problem, 200 to 300 billion, I'll cover it. What else is on the wish list? And where is this money coming from? I mean, billions were spent during the pandemic.
Yep.
Here's what I think has happened. Okay. The U.S. flooded the market with trillions of dollars during the pandemic. That money is slowly coming back out of the markets now. And they're saying, well, let's raise interest rates when the country has basically been closed down for 2 to 3 years. When there was an attack on America back in 2001, I believe, in September, I think that anniversary is coming up in a few days, that economy was closed for 7 days because of its airlines. And it suffered for years after that. We had a worldwide economy almost closed down for 2.5 years.
Yep.
And everybody's going on like there's no problem. It's okay. Everything's fine. Oh, let's jump in and support, these wars, and let's go in and let's send 11 trillion down there to fight this. Let's send machinery. Something's not right here, AJ, when nobody wants to sit down and use diplomacy to stop this war in Ukraine. Now, where is the one leader that is saying, enough of this nonsense? Sweden can't do it because they're too busy giving away 2% of their GDP to become NATO compliant. Finland's too busy because they're now giving away 2% of their GDP to become NATO compliant. All the other NATO countries are too busy flushing out all their old equipment to give to Ukraine, who's now running a credit card bill of over 120 billion. So all these guys are becoming new NATO compliant countries by ordering brand new military equipment to come up to the 2022-2023 standard. So they're using Ukraine as a dumping yard. Remember we had Patrick Lancaster on this program, right? Remember that a couple weeks ago, right? I talked to him yesterday, and he said to me, the carnage that is going on in the Ukraine now is of biblical proportions. He says these offensive drives that, either they're Western back offensive drives, or the collective West is focusing these drives on trying to show solidarity and trying to push back these armies, has failed massively on a biblical scale. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, or who AJ and I are talking about, he was on AJ's channel a couple of weeks ago as a guest, and AJ was interviewing him. Patrick Lancaster he's a crowdfunded freelance journalist based in the Donetsk People's Republic on the eastern part of the Ukraine, now called the Donetsk People's Republic, depending on who you enter a conversation with. But he's been reporting on this area for over 9 years. When I hear stuff like they've been hit on biblical proportions, that is scary. And what is wrong with the diplomacy in this world? Why are no countries going and saying, hey, maybe it's time we sit down at the table and get these two to work out their problems? Because you've just, pardon my language, the average person in the United Kingdom just got screwed on electricity. Same with Europe. Inflation's out of control. Now we're hearing travel bans. I get it if you want to travel ban maybe certain parts of the government. in the EU where you have sanctions or people are on your no-fly list or whatever, but you're banning 140 million people that you have pulled all the Western countries out. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, you name it, has all been pulled out of the markets. Now you want a travel ban, but then you say not really. We'll just end the Schengen visa for Russians, but then we'll offer them a visa, but it's going to go from $30 to $80, and instead of a 10-day wait, it's a 45-day wait. Holy discrimination. Like, what is that? What is that?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, there are leaders actually talking about how they do not agree with it, but they are basically being labeled as Putin's sympathizers because you gotta, as a world
I
leader,
understand.
you gotta stick it to Putin, basically, according to the West. And if you don't stick it to Putin, then you're a Putin sympathizer. And I think there are countries who are actually against this war. I mean, obviously China, for example.
Sure.
There is Hungary to some extent, maybe Turkey even. I think recently Erdogan has said all of these sanctions is all Europeans'
Turkey
fault.
knows how to play it, that's for sure.
Yeah, they do definitely. So there are a few countries. I mean India as well. So they're not saying like, guys, stop the war, but they are kind of making some messages saying, this whatever's happening is not right. But I think also countries around the world, I mean countries from Middle East and Africa, you'll notice they are very quiet. They're not saying anything.
Extremely quiet.
Extremely quiet, and the reason they're not saying anything is that they are seeing the West collapse itself, and I think a lot of these countries are thinking, you know what, let them do it. Let them collapse themselves, because the people who are suffering right now are the Ukrainians. So there's no doubt about that. But you know, but they are. I mean, they are some stupid people in Ukraine who are actually falling for all of this BS coming out. The West falling for Zelensky's lies, and I think eventually people will wake up in Ukraine. I think the only way this war would end is if the Ukrainian people actually stand up and say, you know what, the hell with the West. These guys are using us to every single last Ukrainian in a proxy war with Russia. We're not going to stand for it anymore. We basically want peace. We don't want our country to be destroyed. Let's find a peaceful way to negotiate with Russia. I think people with Ukraine eventually will have to stand up, because right now there's deaths of around 1,000 to 2,000 Ukrainians who are dying daily, especially with this Kherson um, attack, counteroffensive they call it. 1,000 to 2,000 people are dying daily, and eventually you're just going to have a failed state with no men in Ukraine, full of women and children. And how can they're just going to run out of people. I mean, people are leaving the country. I mean, there's so many refugees in rest of Europe. They're not going to come back. So many businesses are leaving. They're not going to come back. And eventually, you'll be left with this rump steak. I call it the rump steak because it really is a rump steak of a situation. You're gonna have all of the eastern side and the southern side taken over by Russia, and then you have the western side, which is probably going to be some sort of middle ground, or some sort of UN or NATO kind of neutral part, and then you have the middle part of Ukraine, which is what the new Ukraine is going to be.
If AG, I think if there's going to be a Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. But look, going back to what you said about Liz Truss, I just wanted to also mention that one thing I didn't mention is she put a price cap on, and you mentioned about the businesses. She did earmark 40 billion to help with businesses, and 40 billion obviously is not that much. I mean, businesses need much more than that. But
Yeah,
one
and
thing,
do,
one thing they
do
did,
you,
yes, yeah, go
do
ahead,
you
sorry.
get that? Do you get that 40 billion check back when you go into receivership when you wind up your
Exactly.
company?
Exactly. And one thing that they have not calculated, one of the worst things about the West, they do not calculate things very well. They don't think about things very well. So they have basically put a price cap on everything, and this is to counter price rises, oil price rises, gas price rises. Well, guess what? Oil prices are rising. Gas prices have risen by a third, uh, from last week. So what if these gas prices start rising and rising and rising till the end of the year, and the government has to pay this difference off? Eventually, they'll run out of money. Eventually, this 300 billion that they've earmarked will run out by this time next April. What they're going to do then?
Oh,
Are they going to borrow another 300 billion
of
or another
course.
400 billion? Because they're not taking into effect that the gas prices are rising. So this 300 billion, they've obviously frozen all of these this money, but they're going to pay the difference. So what if this difference gets larger and larger every single day, and eventually, say by next April, you think, oh shit, we've just run out of our 300 billion budget. So what are we going to do now? Are we going to get the British public to pay for the rest of it, or do we borrow more money? They're going to be in a really bad situation this time by next April, because next April is when gas prices are going to go up by 400% compared to last year. 400%. So this
And we know
two to
who they're
three
going to blame it on.
exactly, and so this 200 to 300 billion is going to disappear. It's going to completely disappear, and they're going to be in major trouble by next April.
Let's have a look at our comments here, AJ. Let's rewind back here a little bit. And thank you for moderating, everyone. Okay, so we're looking at let's see, Tammy. Why didn't Latvia ban or boycotted the British as the U.S. for Iraq and Afghanistan? Latvia will be scarce once the U.S. has fall. We can't wait. Okay. Turkey is the India of Europe, says Hang. Okay. Let's see. The Quantrum. He's got lots always to say. Ukraine will cease to exist as. Right. Hank says the Kherson offensive. Dark Cloud says what Kherson offensive? They didn't move much. Okay. Here's another one. I want to buy a drone camera setup, AJ. Good guest he does top shelf videos in China. He has the skills. Much respect for that. Drop us a comment after. We'll tell you what kind of stuff that we use. Print. What could go wrong? Exactly. Print. Here's the other thing that have you seen? I know that you probably don't look for it much, AJ. But if you go to the visit, just as I'm being sidetracked because Patrick Lancaster just sent me a message. Just got a message from Patrick Lancaster that his summer house and vehicle were hit. He's not sure if it's damage or total loss. That's just a live update from Patrick Lancaster, everybody here.
That's not good. I hope he's okay.
He's heading to that location now. Anyway, sorry to sidetrack. I have him on a special bleep when when he sends me a message. Something I want to bring up, AJ. If you go, and I'm going to look for it now, it's the Visit Ukraine page. It's basically saying October 1st is when they're calling women up to fight.
Yeah.
From Ukraine. Is there? Yeah. I mean, isn't that extraordinary? Okay, well here we go. I'm gonna bring up the page if you guys don't mind. You think it'd be okay to bring up the page, AJ? Should we show it?
Sure.
Okay, let's have a screen share here. 1 second, guys. So this is the front page of Visit Ukraine. I'm sure that will get a lot of people motivated. And thank you, Hang. Yes, I am from Reporterfy Media. If you guys just didn't know me, but AJ is a really good friend of mine. We're chatting always once a week. But have a look at that. Military registration of women from October 1st. Will it be possible for women to travel abroad during wartime and mobilization? Yesterday, it was basically going through, who has to show up. Military registration of women from October 1st. Will it be possible for women to travel abroad in accordance to the laws? I mean, AJ, the last time I checked, the opposition, to my understanding, was kicked out, or some of them were arrested in the by the Zelensky crew, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So now, who's bringing all these laws in? Where's the vote on all these laws? Where's the sitting of their parliament or whatever they call it down there? But who's running the show there? I mean, is it the man in the green shirt that's sitting down and saying, "Hey, all right, 1st October, don't make any travel plans because you're get ready."
I think the woke mob has got to Ukraine finally, because one of the things, the Ukrainians wanted to be Western. They wanted to be part of the Western world. Now they've been hit by the woke mob. So I can imagine how probably a couple of woke activists are saying things like, "Oh, hang on a second, why aren't women joining the army? Why are you discriminating against women?" And now I think a couple of them have decided, okay, I think we have to start drafting women now. So obviously, the Western world, you have men and women enlisting everywhere in the Western world, in America and Britain. And people are probably asking question, why are women not being enlisted in Ukraine?
Yeah.
So
Well,
definitely the woke mob has hit them, and I think they've been forced to make changes.
I understand your point there, but let's okay. There's inscription in militaries, let's say, in Switzerland and Sweden, and everybody does their parts, but you're signing, this is a you're signing your, I don't even want to say you're signing your life. Your life is in massive danger here. Imagine that government says October 1st, say goodbye to everybody, but this ain't to do the country good, to learn some skills. You're going to war.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, this tells you two things. Number one, they're running out of troops, because you're not going to do anything like this if you have plenty of troops. And there was articles saying that Ukraine can enlist 2 million men. I saw this article like a month ago. They said, "Oh, we got plenty of people," and now they're trying to. They've been enlisting all of these disabled people last few months. They've been enlisting disabled people, kids which are 15 or 16. They've been enlisting old people as well. And now they've run out of that, and now they want to get women involved. This tells you a number of things. The casualties that they are reporting is all fake, because the official Ukrainian casualties, they said, "Oh, we've only lost around 16,000, which is 1/6, which is a complete lie." It's more like, it's probably more 200,000, I would say, probably more than that, to be probably even 300,000, because you gotta, not only people are dying, people are also getting injured. If you get your legs blown off or your arms blown off, you're not going to be able to fight. And what about these people going missing? Obviously, there's a couple of people who probably do a runner. They don't want to be killed, so they'll probably go in AWOL. Then you got people who are surrendering to the Russians. Then you have people who are actually going to the Russians to fight against the Ukrainians, who don't believe what the Ukrainians are doing. So there's a lot of, you got to count 200, 300,000 people who are they have lost or losing. And I just think they're running out of troops. I just think they're running out of military. They just don't have enough people. So now they want to get the women involved.
I brought up a screenshot you told me to bring up here. You could maybe tell us what that's all about.
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about China later on, actually. But
okay.
We
can bring it up in a bit.
Yeah, we can bring it up in a bit. But I wanted to finish off talking about the royal family. There's one important point I wanted to say, because people in Britain are in two minds. Obviously, a lot of people are sad that the Queen has left, but a lot of British people, they want the monarchy to end, and they have been saying it for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And the latest thing that's happened, obviously, the latest thing that's happened with Jeffrey Epstein or thing, and you got Prince Andrew.
The dude.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if many people have actually seen the interview Prince Andrew gave, and in the interview, he had guilty written all over his face. In the interview, he was saying things like, "Oh, but ago I went to Pizza Express." I mean, how the hell do you remember what you did 10 years ago? I don't remember what I did 10 days ago. Then he says things like he doesn't sweat, and then you can clearly see him sweating in the interview. He was really sweating in the interview, and he was saying things like, "I don't sweat," and oh my god, he had guilty written all
Yeah, that
over
was
him.
bad. That was a tough interview for him, wasn't it? That was a hard interview for him. I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously he had to pay off that woman.
Yes.
And I know he didn't have the money, so he got the Queen to pay off for him. And guess where the Queen gets the money from? From us, from the taxpayers. So we basically paid off his bill, his court bill, and we basically paid him off out of our taxpayer money. The Queen doesn't have that kind of money in her pocket. She gets it from from us, from the taxpayers, from you guys, from Canadians, from Australians, from New Zealanders. So we as taxpayers had to pay off this ridiculous thing. Obviously, British people are not happy about it. They're like, "Oh, why do we have to pay for this guy's misdemeanors? It's just not fair." And this is why I think now that the Queen is gone, I think a lot of people in Britain will be asking for the monarchy to end, because I think people in Britain have just had enough. They just had enough, and a lot of people were asking for it to end when Diana died. I remember there was a major protests and demonstrations outside. People wanted the end of the monarchy because they believed that Diana was killed. They did not believe
Crazy.
that yeah, and now I think a lot of people will ask for this to end now. I think this is going to be the end of the monarchy, really.
But I mean, is it taboo to, I know in Thailand, you got to be extremely careful about what you say about the king in Thailand. But he actually, I don't even really want to get into it, but I mean, there are certain nations that do have respect for their royalty. Now in Thailand, it's really different, because the power of the royalty in Thailand is quite remarkable. I'll give you an example. When I was there, the king that just recently died a few years ago, he had told the people, "Look, smoking is not good. It kills you." And within a few months after that, the purchasing of cigarettes was almost halved. And people trusted him. Or he would say, if your children are asking for an iPad, tell them that there's more important things. I mean, there was, really a lot of respect for that. Now, Hang's got an interesting point here. He's saying it's not only Thailand has strict majesty laws. I agree with that. But you could feel it in Thailand that was a no-go zone. Is it like that in the United Kingdom?
I think, yeah, if you say anything bad about the Queen, yeah, I think you could get arrested or something. I think there are some laws, but nobody really arrests you if it's, yeah, there is obviously freedom of speech as well. I don't think anyone can arrest you, but I think generally, I think people do like the Queen, to be honest. I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about the Queen. Generally, I think people have more of a problem with the royal family as a whole rather than the Queen.
You know what
the
I find?
Queen is quite likable, I think.
And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt you so many times here, AJ, but it's quite an interesting conversation today. Is I find that most people won't criticize or say anything bad until somebody has passed away. And I think we are going to get quite a research report or an investigative report on the last 96 years of this woman being part of the family and what she has seen and heard and experienced over that 96 years.
Yep.
Would it be safe to say that you know how these things work, right?
Yep.
Where everyone is in fashion at one time. It's sometimes it's the American way. They help you, they bring you up, and then they watch you fall, but they want the comeback. It's like a Hollywood story, you know. Somebody leads and they do well, then they make a mistake, they become honest or whatever they call it, and then they wait for the comeback.
Yep.
I'm just waiting. Like they do that with stars, you know, they do it with Michael Jackson and Elvis and all this kind of stuff. Do you think there's going to be someone or some movement that really does look back? Because, you know, our history, even in Canada, has come under some serious issues here last year with a lot of problems in the Aboriginal, also in the Métis, the native minorities in our country, and that hit the papers worldwide, and that really brought out a lot of the churches into the limelight here. Is this, and like I said before when we started this program, this lady was tough enough to handle everything.
Yeah.
But she's no longer with us. And Charles, is he going to be the guy that can handle this? Because I truly believe that the either woke or the Western medias are going to come out for the next couple of days, show their condolences. And I feel this coming now. They show their condolences to the loss, and we have an extended time for grieving. But then look at what you've got set against this royal family right now. All I have to say is one girl's name, Meghan. What's she going to unleash?
Yeah.
What is she ready to unload? What is she going to bring? Is she now going to name this, or either it's a fictional or a non-fictional person that has some issues with her? Is this going to be the start? Is she going to be doing some TV shows to really? I think they are going to be massively exposed. It was it was all hands off with Queen Elizabeth running the show, rightfully so in some way, because she was a tough one. Now I'm pulling out of the. I'm not saying the last 96 years was a perfect record. That's for a whole other show to talk about.
Yeah.
But you've taken out the glue, you've taken out the fence, you've taken out the last figure. I think the media was kind of hands off, always hands off. Don't go there, don't touch her, don't talk about her, don't talk about her family, leave her alone. She's the Queen Elizabeth, she's highly respected. No news agency would even fathom going down that channel. But now they are wide open and they are very exposed here. I don't know if there's survival, if they're going to make it. I really don't know.
Yeah, you made an important point about the Queen's age. I mean, she's 96. So if you think about it, 96 years ago, Britain was a superpower. You know, Britain was, 96 years ago, Britain was ruling the waves. I think it was around 1956 when British started losing their power, and I think that was during the Suez Canal. So when they lost the Suez Canal to Egypt, and that was the beginning of the end of the British Empire collapsing. And then you had the rise of America, obviously, United States. But you're right. It's 96 years. She's seen a lot. She's grown up with a lot, and things were very different 96 years ago than they are today. And yeah, she has been the glue to kind of she has the experience and the glue to kind of put it all together. And like I said, Queen is a likable person around the world. I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about her. But yeah, King Charles, who's a very much a spoilt brat since he was a kid. I mean, what does he do? I mean, what has he done? Yeah, as a prince, nothing. He's got no likable factor. Obviously what's happened to Diana, and also
Yes.
he just doesn't have that charisma or likability, or why are we as taxpayers going to pay your salary for the next however long? He just doesn't have that. Yeah, like I said, the glue. The Queen has seen a lot in the 96 years, and she's seen a superpower turn into Britain as of today, which is a non-superpower. Even India's taken over Britain's GDP as well. There was an article saying that India's economy is actually bigger than Britain, and a lot of Western articles were saying, "Oh, this is karma. This is your it is your ex-colonialism biting you back in your backside," and a lot of papers, including Fox News, are talking about this story. But the point is, it really doesn't matter, because you got to look at India's population compared to Britain. Eventually, India's economy will rise because of the amount of people they have. The same things happened to China, but the difference between China and India is, China has a much more developed manufacturing base, and much more much better supply chains compared to India, and this is why China's economy will always be better than the Indian one. But people make a difference as well. When you got 1.4 billion people, obviously your economy is gonna shoot up, but it doesn't
Well,
mean it's a good thing. Per capita wise is actually very low compared to UK, so that, you can't really put figures on that. Yeah,
I
sorry.
had my mother on the phone the other day, and she was talking to me about her electricity bills and these gas bills. And I know you guys may be tired of hearing about this, but it really resonates when my mother said, "Son, Alex, when is my gas and my electric bill going to outpace my actual pension?" Now, Canada has a pension plan. They have a couple. They have old age pension, then Canadian pension. I think if you reach the age of 70, you're given an old age pension. I can't remember if it's 65 or 67 to retire now. I mean, think about that. Think about that for a moment. You have to work. I think your starting working age in Canada is 16 until you're 67 years old. That's what, 51 years of paying taxes, and then being told that you qualify for retirement. But that retirement pension that you've paid into, and if you have the luxury and you're not a civil servant, which my mother did work for, we'll call it, it wasn't really government, but it was more municipality work, and then worked in the oil fields and had to retire due to health issues. But you see, the issue now is it's now starting to affect people's lives. And when I start to see people compare, they're saying, well, China does this and China doesn't have that and China doesn't have this. Okay, first of all, to my understanding, and I'm using this city here, Chongqing. If you guys aren't aware of it, I live in Chongqing, China right now. City of 30-some million. There's certain things that, of course, are important to people that they take for granted. First of all is Medicare, medical systems, right? So you can imagine that as a Canadian taxpayer, you pay a ton of money for medical care. but it's it's reactive medical system in Canada, not a proactive, or it's all reactive. What I mean by that is, if you break a leg or you go into the hospital, you're liable for only to pay basically a small fee, maybe for your drugs. We'll call it your can't remember the name, your pharmaceutical drugs, okay? And then the rest of the operation is covered. But try walk into any Canadian medical facility, government, and say, hey, you know what? I would just like to check my body. I'm 50 or I'm 60 years old. I'd like an annual checkup, maybe an X-ray, a CT scan, or maybe an MRI. And they're going to laugh at you. They're going to go, what's wrong with you? Well, nothing's wrong with you. Well, then go home. Because we don't have the manpower. And the next available spot for an MRI is 5 months. So you have this situation, and I have this situation now, where I have a mother who's 70, just hang on a sec, 40, 70, 73 or 74, I can't remember. She just had a birthday, where China is starting to look pretty good to bring her here. And that's because I know that, she can get the care that she needs. She can feel safe. She's not going to get hit by surprises with inflation. She's not going to watch her neighbors lose their business. She's not going to watch somebody get robbed or stabbed, as it happened in one of my provinces where I was from in Canada just recently. Yes, I do ramble, but so the issue is, and I find it is, tell somebody 20 years ago that in the Western countries that they would be moving their family to China, they think you're absolutely crazy. Don't you agree?
I completely agree with you, Alex.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, my uncle died last week, so I was in his funeral.
Sorry about that.
And he was around 60 years old, and I think he was a very fit and healthy guy. He could have lived for another 20 years. So he died of cancer. So after COVID hit Great Britain, a lot of patients had years of appointments moved back. So my uncle, he was supposed to go for a checkup, during COVID times, and they obviously postponed it. And they postponed it, and they kept postponing it year after year. And it was about 2 years after, waiting 2 years on the NHS. Finally went for a checkup, and they said, "Oh, you have cancer." And they said, unfortunately, this is at a late stage, so you only have about 30 days to live. And obviously, the family was in shock, and they, if they had checked him out just a year ago, or 1 year ago, it would have been enough time for them to get rid of it using treatment and stuff. But they found it too late, and only because 2 years he kept, they kept pushing his appointment. So I know how bad things are in Great Britain, and
I'm really sorry about that, AJ. I mean, I lost my father at 56 to cancer. Same thing. He complained about having aches in his back. Oh, don't worry, go see a chiropractor. Take some painkillers. He asked, "Can I have an MRI? Can I have something? I know something's wrong with me."
Yeah.
Went into the hospital 21 days later. Boom, finished, just like that.
Yeah.
And I feel you on this. This reactive medical doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, no. My father also passed away. He went to hospital because he had some back problems. It was a routine check. 30 days later, he died. Basically, it's really bad here at the NHS. Alex, I haven't been to the doctor as long as I can remember since I was a kid, because I just don't trust the NHS. I just don't trust the doctors. if there's something wrong with me, I would just Google it, or try and go to the pharmacist and have a chat with the pharmacist. And I just don't trust the NHS, Alex. It's really, really bad. But you know, Liz Truss is actually, you know, we've talked about how she's going to waste 200-300 billion on this freeze, but she's also talking about
Staggering.
increasing the defense budget from 2% to 3% in
Crazy.
UK, and you're talking about another 150 to 200 billion. And she's talking about that, and because obviously she has an eye on China, she has obviously an eye on Russia, and Britain is also going to be upgrading their nuclear deterrence as well. They're going to be building more nuclear weapons. They're going to be building more updated nuclear weapons, and she has already said that. She said she's going to be doing that, and it's just crazy when you increase the budget of your military from 2% to 3%, you're going to have to get money from somewhere else, right? Because you can't just if you have you can't just increase the budget of one thing and not increase other things. So what she's going to have to do is you know, over the years NHS has got worse because there's less and less funding. The education has gone worse. Um, Everything has gone worse in UK. I mean, when I was growing up, education was free, school meals was free, but now kids, they have to get loans for school meals. You know, nothing is free in school anymore. If you want to have school meals, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for certain things in schools. Some schools are not even free. That you got to, you know, you got to pay for your education. When you go to college, university, you got to pay for it. And kids now end up in so much debt. Is it actually worth it? When you come out with university, you want a brand new start in life, but you have so much debt. You know, it's really, really bad. The education's gone down. The NHS has gone down. Research and development, all the research development is moving abroad, going to China, going to other parts of Europe. So Britain is on its way down, Alex, and you know,
I think the same
you know,
for Canada.
NHS is going to collapse anytime soon because people are leaving, the nurses are leaving, doctors are leaving. They just don't have enough, you know, capacity.
I left
Wait,
Canada. Sorry,
waiting time for ambulance is 4 hours. So imagine if you have
disgrace.
average time in UK 4 hours for ambulance. Imagine if you have an emergency and you have 4 hours for an ambulance to turn up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
You know, I see this point here by the Quantum. Reactive healthcare costs more than preventative healthcare. I totally agree with that. I did bring my mom over to Thailand a few years back, and the first thing I did is I marched her down to the hospital. Now, the word hospital scared her, and I said, "Mom, no, this isn't run like the Canadian hospitals where you're in emergency and you smell death in the emergency room. This is some people that are going to take care of you for 2 or 3 hours, take you through some tests, tell you what's wrong, or if there's anything wrong, and tell you how we can correct it. No, you're not going to wait a month for your results or 2 weeks for this specialist to come in and bill correctly, because you got to remember, when you go to see a doctor in Canada, you can only ask 2 or 3 questions. And after that, you got to make another appointment because the billing and the standards don't go that way. And that's how the consumption taxes, the income taxes, the property taxes, the payroll taxes, the social security contributions, they're all interlinked into taxes that all have to be accountable. So that's why when I brought her there into Thailand, she didn't understand the system. Well, lo and behold, 4 hours later, after a nice little lunch at the hospital cafe, the doctor read her results and he says, "Ma'am, you have a nice clean bill of health. You may want to eat a few less eggs because your cholesterol is high. But besides that, everything else is great. You're healthy." And I have to tell you, AJ, when you have that conversation with your elderly mother and you see a smile from ear to ear, that she knows that nothing's wrong, that little ache that she thought could be something isn't something, thank God. But even if we did find something, at least you have a shot to extend your life. If I was a Canadian now in Canada, I'm still Canadian, but if I was a Canadian now and I was about to retire, there's something crazy And I think it's got a lot to do with the media, especially the collective West. Okay. If I was a Canadian still living in Canada and about to retire and still owned a home and paid it off, luckily, as a Canadian, I would sell that house, I would take my pension, and I would get the heck out of there. No matter how beautiful Canada is, you can always go back and visit. You can always go back on a 2, 3, 4 week holiday or whatever, but get out of there, because you're seeing your taxes eat up your capital. Why would you sit on a house that you pay property? And I love this argument of people that say, well, in China, you don't really own your home because it's not freehold, it's a leasehold. Well, and soon I'll answer that question in a moment. Then in so and so, you can't do this because in Canada you pay a property tax. Okay. In other nations like China, the taxes are quite low here. The inflation is quite low here. The healthcare, even if you're paying for it, is quite low here. And you can live in a decent apartment. You can relatively live a safe life with no worries. But now we have an elderly parents concerned, do they buy, hey, son, can you buy me an extra blanket for Christmas? No, Mom, how about I buy you a plane ticket and get you the hell out of there? Okay. Yeah. I want to answer something here, and then I'll let you get on here. Soon said there must be something good about Canadian Medicare. Guelo 60 took his wife there. I'm a very good friend of Kurt's. And I'm going to be very clear about answering that question. Canada has a great medical system, especially when it comes to cancer, or we'll call it end-of-life treatment. And I think that's as much in detail as I have to address that comment. That yes, if you have cancer and there's pretty much no option, but you eventually could pass away or die, of course, they treat you quite well at that. But that's the end game that I don't think anyone wants to face. Kurt is an extremely good friend of mine. I talk to him on a actually daily basis. I actually had Guelo 60, as he's known throughout the YouTube community. To me, he's known as Kurt. He stayed at my house in Thailand for 5 months. I've met his wife. I can tell you it was a difficult situation for him to go back to Canada for that. But when it comes to cancer treatment or end-of-life treatment, Canada's great for that. But does anyone ever want to be in that situation to say that the medical system's great when you're about to die? I don't think so. Over to you, AJ.
Sure. I just want to kind of raise that there's a famous YouTuber, you might know him. His Ollie Barrett.
Barrett?
Barrett, yeah, Barrett.
Yeah.
The father. He obviously had cancer.
Lee.
Yeah. So he had cancer, and he was in China at the time, and he had some great treatment, and now he's going around traveling the world, and it's great. I mean, I just think that if he was in Britain having that kind of treatment, he would have been on the waiting list for 2 years, and God knows what would have happened. He would definitely not got the same treatment. And I could see. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I did have a couple of comments with him. I sent him a few, well done, congratulations messages and stuff. He replied back on Twitter, but he also admitted that, and I said, the treatment you had in China. I asked him straight, do you think you would have the same treatment in UK? And he said, definitely not. He said, I'm very, very lucky to be in China with cancer, because I had an amazing, treatment. And because of, he was in China at the time, he wouldn't be in any other country if he had cancer. And I think now he's out, he's traveling the world, he's enjoying life. And I think if he was in Britain, it would have been a different story. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be realistic here. If anyone suffers from a medical issue, it's the unknown that probably causes more damage to the mental health of a person. Imagine going something. Don't tell me that when something's wrong with you, that you have, and maybe there's people out there, but not me. If something happened to me and I had a pain or something, and it was lasting for a week or 2 weeks, and somebody told me, oh, you got to wait 3 months. First, go see a specialist. The specialist will sign a documentation. The documentation, you'll go and you'll see the doctor, and then they'll give you x-rays. And if you don't see something after the x-rays, we'll go to an MRI in 6 months. And then in about 8 months, we'll give you your diagnosis. Forget it. I mean, by that time, who knows the damage that stress or that extra anxiety can cause a person? There's other costs to that. And that's where you wonder why 1 in 3 college students in the United States have been medicated in some form, fashion. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies are loving this. They don't want to find a solution for you. A quick one, forget it. It never. And that's the thing that really bothers me. Somebody made, I'm looking at this here from Bridget. A lot of Asian countries are not making it easy to retire without a real lot of money. Bridget, I'm just going to pass this note on to you. Thailand has, and if you're thinking, I'm not promoting the Thailand because I lived there, but my wife's parents are retired there. Thailand only you have 2 methods of that how you can retire in Thailand. If you're over the age of 50, immediately you qualify as a retiree or a pensioner, we'll call it. Now, if you have a government pension, great. That goes towards a monthly calculation, and most Western countries that have even the basic pension that pay you almost cover what Thailand's requirements are. Okay. Now, for a yearly visa, it's $300. That's what they charge you for a 1-year renewable visa. If you don't have a pension, but you have approximately, I think it's $22,000 to keep in the bank account, it's yours. As long as you keep it in there, they will also grant you a visa, but you can't take that money out. But banks are pretty crafty there, where they will give you a line of credit against your lump sum that is locked up for a small amount of money. The third one is called the Thai Elite Visa. I have one of those. I have a Thai Elite Visa. I'm on my second Thai Elite Visa. It's $15,000 for 5 years. Unlimited stay in the country. In fact, they pick you up with a luxury car and even a golf cart from the airplane. So there might not be a lot of countries there desirable, but Thailand is definitely one that is welcoming, we'll call it, people to retire. And I think it might sound like a bit of an investment, but compared to UK power and electricity bills, I don't think it's much. Okay, another topic I want to bring up here, AJ, is AJ and I have been invited. We're not going to announce the name here yet on the show until we get an official link. But AJ, you may want to just let people know that we've been invited to take part of call it a, what kind of show would we call it? What's it called?
They're very knowledgeable about the world, except China. Let's just put it that way. No, they're good guys. They're good guys. I mean, I'm not nothing bad to say about them. But yeah, I think they get things 99% right. But I think when it comes to China, they don't really get things right as often. So we're going to try and change that. We're going to try. Yeah,
we're working out of time.
We're going to educate them.
We're working out of time for that show here. I'm pretty certain it's going to happen next week. So if AJ and I don't have a show, at least by Wednesday next week, you can be rest assured that we're going to be appearing on some other show as well. I did meet Daniel Dumbrell yesterday at the skate park. He was taking his kids out for some skateboards, and I discussed with him about, as you guys know, we made the announcement that we're bringing back the Let's Talk China show as well. And of course, AJ, hopefully he will find some time to appear on that.
Of course, yeah,
okay. So it's going to be a somber day here in the United Kingdom, I guess. AJ, I mean, any last comments in regards to what's going to happen in the UK there over the next few days?
I mean, I live in London right now, and I talk to a lot of people, and people are not that sad that the Queen has passed away. I think people were um, understood that she had to go eventually because of her age. But I think not a lot of people are actually sad about it. And even if Prince Charles becomes King Charles, people are not going to be happy about that. And I think the monarchy is going to be ending because you have the cost of living crisis, right? And people are paying taxes after taxes. They're finding they are losing more and more money every single day. Their mortgages rates are going up. The cost of living is going up. And eventually, there's going to come a time when people are counting pennies, and the government will have to justify why they're paying millions and millions to the royal family who don't even do much. So people are going to start asking questions, thinking, why are we paying Charles's salary, King Charles's salary? And I think people will eventually rise up. But right now, people have other important issues to think about. Obviously, how to feed their children, how to keep their children warm. Gas, obviously, electricity prices are people's main concerns at the moment. And I can tell you that Ukraine is probably on the last on people's list in Great Britain. I know that Boris and Zelensky had a good relationship. Do you know the first person Liz called when she became prime minister? The first person she called.
No,
Guess what?
come on,
Yeah,
come
she called
on.
Zelensky. She called
Why?
Zelensky as the first person, and she broke tradition because tradition because one of the traditions of British Prime Minister, the first person you need to always call is the American president. She broke tradition and she didn't even call Biden. She called Zelensky first, and Biden is not very happy by the looks of it. Biden and the White House are not pleased with Liz at all, and this is a own goal. First of all, Biden didn't really like Boris that much, but they are getting off at the worst.
Jesus.
Let me show you this article here, and it's actually.
Let me find it.
I'll send you a link.
Okay, no problem. To the
I'll
viewers,
send
you have to understand that this, just so I'm chatting with some of the people here, as content creators and people that have our strengths, we have our strengths on certain countries that we report on or investigate or do research on. The good news is that the people that we get into conversations with, we are all level-headed and we have a great desire to learn from each other. And that's why I'm saying that, we won't name some of the programs that we're going to be on, but these people welcome us, and they welcome us with an open elective to kind of understand what it's like in different parts of the world. And I'll give you an example on that. There was a gentleman that I did live streams before, great guy. I know him quite well, Cyrus Jansen, incredible guy, has amazing reports on China. He's married to a Chinese national, an extremely intelligent guy. Cyrus was very, we'll say, not understanding of the Ukraine situation. And his followers were saying, wait a minute, Cyrus, you got to hear the other side. You got to hear the other side before jumping out there and making a report about the Ukraine. So Cyrus called me up and he says, what do you think of this Ukraine situation? And I said, Cyrus, get a beer, sit down, give me 30 minutes of your time. Now, Cyrus could have easily said, whatever, Alex, what do you know about Ukraine? Who gives a flying, whatever. He didn't. He says, how about an hour? Let's sit down and talk about it for an hour. So we sat down and I started to explain to him. I said, you know what would be great? If Patrick Lancaster came onto your program. And he says, but, is that dangerous? And I said, well, in what aspect? He says, well, you know, are people going to be angry? Because this was right around near the start of the Ukraine confrontations that were going on, just early days, right? And he phoned me back after the show with Patrick, and he says, "You know what? Wow, that was probably one of the best interviews I've ever had." And if you go on his channel, in fact, it's, I think, to either within days of the view counts, it's going to be his most popular video ever on Cyrus's channel. And he said to me, amazing what this community can do. And that's why if we appear and when we appear on other people's shows, I welcome that type of interaction. Now, you can have a disagreement, or you can have a difference of an opinion. That's healthy. There are other channels that just spread outright hate, which, you know, these channels are not that. But the other channels that we want to interact with are very intelligent people, very smart people, very open-minded people.
Exactly.
And incredibly, the kind of people that this community needs to make stronger. And that's why we are blessed as content creators to have that type of interaction, to share our knowledge here. Because guess what? If it wasn't for those other individuals, what kind of information would we be getting out of that part of the world right now? So my hat's off. We're not going to name the people, but my hat is off to the gentlemen that have definitely, on a daily basis, that I watch, that keep us up to tune with that. And of course, my buddy Patrick Lancaster as well. AJ?
Yep.
We're gonna. What did you send me that link? Did you find it?
Yeah, I did. Finish off with a few things about China as well. So I did send you the link here. The last link is.
Okay. I'm just. Is this the? Do you want me to bring up the Biden link?
No.
Or do you want the trade representatives?
Yeah, the Biden link. Sorry, the Biden one.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to play the video or not?
No. Just the headline article.
All right.
And also the trade representative as well.
Okay. Coming up.
Sure.
1 second. All right. Okay. Here's this one. How is that one? Is that good?
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, that Liz Truss breaks from tradition, and her first phone call is to Zelensky. This shows what her priorities are, unfortunately, and this is really, really bad news, because it shows that she's going to carry on with Boris's plan. You have to understand the reason why Boris got sacked is not because of his policies in UK, but mainly because of his policies abroad, especially his friendship with Zelensky. Every important meeting he had in UK, he used to skip it and fly off to Ukraine to have a few drinks with his mate. And this is why Boris got kicked out, because people eventually lost confidence. It looks like Liz Truss is doing the same thing. She's announced defense spending going from 2% of GDP to 3% of GDP. And just to give you guys an understanding of how much China spends on its defense compared to its GDP, it's only 1.3%, could be even 1.5%. So let's just say under 2%. And Britain suddenly now wants to spend 3% of its GDP on defense. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's going to cost another 150 to 200 billion. I don't know where she's going to get the money from, but this shows you that where her priorities are over the next 6 months, a year for Britain. She is looking to ratchet things up with China. She's looking to ratchet things up with Russia. And this is why Britain is spending a lot on its military. And I think they are preparing for some sort of military conflict, which could happen sooner, whether it's going to start in Russia or whether it's going to be in Taiwan. So this kind of gives you an indication where Liz Truss's priorities are. It's not local cost of living stuff. She's just borrowing money and just kicking the can, like you said. But her main priorities are going to be Taiwan, it's going to be Russia and Ukraine, and she has already proved that. So that's a real big worry for British people. Secondly, I want to, if you can show the article about Biden, we'll talk a bit about China.
Mm-hmm. All right, here.
Unfortunately, a lot of British people don't pick up the fact that what she's doing, but I can immediately pick it up from her actions and what she's been saying. But a lot of British papers are not going to pick that up. So this is one of the first things. The US has had some tariffs placed on China. This is from the Trump era, and he placed $300 billion worth of tariffs to fix America's trade deficit. Unfortunately, the trade deficit has been getting larger and larger and larger, and it's become to a point where America's trade deficit is over. I think it's some ridiculous figures. I think it's over like I can't tell you exact figures now, but it's almost doubled what it was a few years ago when Trump had his trade deficit then compared to what it is now. It's almost double, and it's and they have placed these ridiculous tariffs, and if they got rid of these tariffs, it would have helped with the inflation, because you got to understand these tariffs mean more costs go to the consumers, because businesses they're not going to pay for it, the government's not going to pay for it. So when there's tariffs on Chinese goods, the cost usually goes to the customer, and the customer has to pay more because of that. And the easiest thing to reduce inflation would have been to take off these tariffs. However, even though the failed trade war, even though the deficit is going larger and larger every year, because they do not want to show any weakness, they are not reducing the tariffs, and it's a really stupid decision, which shows that they are not looking after people's interests. They're only looking after the interest of the 1%. And the other article I wanted to show is the first one, the Biden one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that the one? I think I'm having trouble getting the Biden one open. Is that the epoch? Is that the epoch
yeah,
one?
sorry. Yeah, let me
okay.
give you another website actually.
Sure, no problem.
Or I'll just talk about it. But
Sure.
basically, Biden has announced that he's gonna stop Chinese businesses, American businesses to set up factories in China, and these are tech companies. So he's done a couple of things with this, tech bill that he has recently signed. The first thing that he did was he stopped a lot of these tech companies from trading with China. I'll give you Nvidia, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Nvidia has lost 300 to 400 billions in sales to China with this new chip. I mean, let me tell you something, Alex. When you're a tech company and you build up new technologies, if you can't sell it to the biggest market in the world, who are you going to sell it to? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, because China is a factory of the world. They make electronic goods, all of the laptops that we use, all of the, car stuff, the mobile phones, IoT devices, it all comes from China. So if you're not going to sell these chips to China, who else are you going to sell it to? There's no, America, there's not really much of a manufacturing market there. The rest of Europe, there's no manufacturing market there. So where are you going to sell it to? That's why Nvidia shares have gone, they've literally crashed. I mean, if you're a tech company and you invent this new chip, but you can't sell it, so what's the point of inventing new chips then?
Exactly.
What's the point of spending all that money on research if you can't sell the bloody product? So
it's crazy.
Yeah, and the second thing that they've done is Biden has said that all of these American companies cannot open up shop in China anymore, especially tech companies, and they're calling it, basically they don't want any technology transfers to China. They don't want any semiconductor companies setting up shops in China. Well, guess what? China's going. This is going to push China to build its own semiconductor companies,
of course,
and they don't care if American companies come to China or not. I mean, nobody's actually put a gun on all of these American companies' heads to go to China. And let me tell you something, if they don't go to China, they are missing out on two things. They are missing out on the huge market, and secondly, they are missing out on cheap um, cheap manufacturing. Because if you build a factory in China, and your costs are going to be much lower than if you built in America. So all of these companies, they're going to be priced out of the market, because if they can't go to China, build factories, if they can't, um, you know, if they can't, go there and make products cheaply. For example, Apple. If Apple is banned from opening up Chinese factories, if Apple had to do it in America, these iPhones would have cost $10,000. Who's going to buy an iPhone for $10,000?
AJ, it's not just that. Look at the bottom line where the sales come from of Apple iPhones. The sales are huge in China.
Exactly,
Just
because of the market,
just outside that door there's 3 brand new shopping malls with 3 Starbucks, 2 McDonald's, KFCs, Pizza Huts, Burger King. These are bottom lines that these guys in America, they can't do what they did here, what they did to Russia, because you would wipe out the S&P 500 and pretty much any major company, any major Fortune 500 company would be finished. And they are fooling themselves. Now, of course, China is an easy target where they'll say, yeah, but they're major polluters. They're major polluters of the world and stuff. Well, that's because you're ordering all the product to be manufactured over here. If you were to move it back to your shores and manufacture it in your country, the pollution would be just off the radar there. So it's one thing to criticize China, and then the average government, but they're not thinking long term. I mean, sure, they want to say, wow, let's ban the chips, or let's ban this. That word banning doesn't go very well, because let's look at the future here. If you're going to look at the future here,
it's absolutely
China's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Alex, it's just one thing after another. A few weeks ago, they banned product from Xinjiang. Then they also banning companies like TSMC, Samsung from opening up factories in China as well. They're doing everything they can to decouple from China, everything they can. But who's going to lose at the end? All of these things America is doing, who is actually losing? Who's actually winning? China doesn't care. I mean, if America's the one. If you're going to end up building and manufacturing in America, like you said, you're going to have to pay for more costs. You're going to have to pay for more labor. You're going to be priced out of the market because you're not going to be competitive. Your prices aren't going to be competitive with the rest of the world. And the other main important thing is the pollution. When you have factories running in your country, you have a major carbon footprint. And if you look at the carbon footprint over the years, it has been going lower and lower in developed countries. It's been going lower in Europe. It's been going lower in UK. But why is that? Because they are sending all of their manufacturing to China. And this is why their carbon footprints for developed countries have been going lower, because not only are they exporting manufacturing to other countries, they're also exporting the carbon, the CO2. So there's a lot of things that people need to think about, before they start judging. I mean, also per capita, China is actually lower in terms of emissions, and people don't see that how much money China is investing in renewables, and
massive.
you have a huge desert, Gobi Desert, and they are building so many solar, power stations there. That's enough. So, if they finish building all these solar power plants, that's enough to power the whole world. I'm not talking just about China, but that's enough to power the whole world if they finish building all of these solar panels. They're also building a lot of wind energy, and
solar. Planting the most trees in the world.
Planting the most trees. Chinese mountains, they call it the roof of the world, right? I mean, everybody knows that. And the reason they call it the roof of the world, they have the highest mountains in the world. And they are building so many wind farms in all of these mountains where there's a lot of wind. Like I said, they are building so many trees. mean, NASA satellite images have proved that, you know, China is actually going greener. You got the Great Green Wall that they are building,
Mhm.
and they have built huge forests near Beijing. I think it's called Sainaba. I think I heard it's Sainaba or something. I think I'll have to Google it. But it's a huge man-made forest. It's absolutely huge. It's the size of Ireland. And you know how big Ireland is. You know,
Yeah.
billions and billions of trees they've built around the Beijing, and you just have to look at that forest, what they've done, and you know, China's doing so much in terms of renewables, and now they're also spending this year alone. They put $3 trillion on renewables infrastructure. They're also building another 50 or so nuclear power plants. They're building loads of hydroelectric dams as well. So in terms of renewables, China is so far ahead of every other country, and that gap is getting wider and wider every single year. The amount of money that's going into renewables, they're also building hydrogen plants as well. Hydrogen is the next big thing, Alex. You know,
Mhm.
hydrogen power. The problem with hydrogen power is it's very dirty. You know, you need a lot of coal or gas to make hydrogen. However, China is in, you know, is in a very good position where they can make green hydrogen, and green hydrogen is basically hydrogen made out of renewables power. And you know, one of the problems about renewables is, you know, for example, if you're in the Gobi Desert and you have loads of solar power plants, you know, you have to transfer all of that power to the rest of China. So they are building high voltage transmission lines. Um, but problem is with high voltage transmission line, you do lose a lot of electricity, which gets, you know, which gets lost alongside the travel, but also you don't get, you know, power at night. So what these green hydrogen plants are doing, they are building all of these green hydrogen power plants all over China, which will basically convert solar power into green hydrogen, and they will use that green hydrogen to transport that across China. They'll use it for power plants. They'll be replacing coal and gas. They can eventually use it for airplanes. They can eventually use it for cars as well.
Mm.
So it's a real, you know, it's the future, green hydrogen. I think green hydrogen is what's going to be driving the world economy over the next 100 years or so. You know,
Mm.
it's more cleaner than lithium batteries. Problem with lithium batteries, you got to
Mhm.
mine the materials, and you got to mine. It's a very dirty process, you know, when you mine lithium, cobalt, and stuff like that. And the resource is very, very limited around the world. There's not many lithium mines around the world, and eventually that's going to run out. And also the other problem with lithium is you got to recycle it, and there's, you know, at the moment we don't have the technology to recycle lithium as well. So hydrogen and green hydrogen is the way forward, and I think China is the biggest investor of green hydrogen in the world. And I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of money, you know, China is putting into renewables. You know, I made a video on it actually once, but you know, it's just, and they're
Mm.
also the leader of hydroelectric power plants, the Three Gorges. They're building. China has got a lot of, you know, they got a lot of rivers in China, a lot of rivers in Tibet, a lot of
Mhm.
untapped resources, especially with water, and they are building a lot of hydro power dams all over China. And I think that is also going to reduce a lot of nuclear power plants. Russia's helping them build a couple as well. China is heading towards a very, very green future, and they are putting the most money in, you know, more than the whole world is putting into renewables, just China alone.
Yeah, this is some footage that is from a video that I produced, a little documentary I produced on the commitment that China is focusing on. This comes from the top down. This doesn't come from activism or anything like that. This comes from, you know, the central government has
Yeah,
duly been responsible by implementing it. You can see this picture on the screen here. This was of Beijing many years ago.
sure.
In fact, the city of Chongqing, where I live in now, 20 some years ago, you couldn't see the sky.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now I was watching today
Blue
looking at
skies. Yeah.
I was looking at some vintage footage from the late 1990s, and I said, "What? That was Chongqing?" And they said, "Yes." And brighter days are ahead with all the EV cars on the streets here. Now, the EV cars here are not marketed the way they are marketed in the US, where it's rammed down your throat. It's massive amount of money. It's the California thing to do. No, it's done here on a way of affordability. First of all, you can buy a relatively decent little EV car to fit 2 or 4 people for around $4,000. Now, it's only going to get you 200 to 300 kilometers per charge, but it's an option.
Yeah.
Instead of going out and taking a mortgage out on a car for $90,000. I mean, incredible. We got so much to cover, but we're going to cover a little bit more next week, of course. I just want to, maybe you can have the last word, and then we'll do a little bit of we'll do a nice outro for the people in the United Kingdom here that are grieving during this day, and we'll say goodbye to our audience here pretty soon. Fire away, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say, I just want to give my respects to the Queen. You got to respect her. She's lived 96 years. She's seen a lot in her time. She's seen the rise and fall of Great Britain, or not so Great Britain anymore. And yeah, I just want to, obviously, I know a lot of people are grieving and stuff, but I think this is probably a good thing for the long-term future of England. I think people will, over the next few weeks, few months, will start to realize whether the monarchy is still required in the country, and you will see a lot of changes happening, especially with the cost of living. People will ask questions every single money, where it goes, how the government will have to justify every single penny, how they're spending it, who they're giving it to, and people will start asking questions for that. I mean, when the economy does well, nobody really cares about giving money to the royal family. But when the economy is doing really badly, as it is now, people will be asking questions, where that money is going and to whom. I think yeah, I just wanted to say that, really. But yeah, I mean, I do like the Queen. I don't want to get people wrong. I do like the Queen. I think she's done a great job over the years, and she's likable. Nobody's got anything bad to say about her. It's a shame that she's gone, but she's lived a good life. She's 96 years old. I mean, I would love to live until 96, which I don't think I will. But anybody would love to see go up to 96. I think she's lived a good life. She's seen a lot in her time, and yeah, I just want to give my regards to her and her family.
Well, I think it's a wake-up call here. It's a serious wake-up call to a nation. I think today's image that we have on the screen, dark clouds, I think there are some dark clouds and some challenging times ahead here for the monarchy. I think the media has been hands-off for the last few decades. There has been massive controversy. Unfortunately, I think their most iconic member of that family has passed away, which is no one likes to see anyone pass away that has that type of effect on many people. But it's unfortunate. But, as I say, AJ, tomorrow the sun will come up again. And this should be a wake-up call for the United Kingdom as it pushes forward into very, very difficult times, rising energy costs, being involved in wars, funding them. This has a dark history. Maybe this could be the end of the monarchy as we know it. I don't mean it as the end, but I mean it's what's that word I'm looking for?
I think it's the end of Britain, Alex. I think the British economy is collapsing. I think it's going to be the end of Britain. I think it's getting so bad that people will take back their democracy. I mean, when democracy was first built, it was for the people, voted by the people, nowadays politicians are doing whatever the hell they want. You know, they don't care what the people think. They're not doing it for people's benefits. They're doing it for their own benefits. And I think people would rise up pretty soon if things get worse as they are now. Within next year, people are going to hit the streets and they will take back their government. I think it's going to be the end of Britain as we know it.
The word I was looking for is, I believe that could be the end of the influence.
Yep.
And the brand has been under attack for years. It's a brand. And I just think that with them leaving the European Union, the reluctancy to negotiate any deal, whether it's Boris's ambition to rip up all major agreements and trade agreements because they want out or they want in. Status quo isn't good enough, it seems, for what's been going on in that country. They've now, another prime minister has come in to take power. Another one in her first 2 days has decided to write checks for the tune of $200 to $300 billion. Man, the country needs a leader right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. My condolences not only go out to a nation that's having difficult times, but man, oh man, somebody's got to take control of the steering wheel there, because things are just getting out of control.
I think it's 500 to 600 billion. She's written checks. Don't forget the rise of military budget, and she's signed a lot of checks over the past few days. And one of them, and I think by next year she's going to run out of money, because that's what you get by getting people in who know nothing about politics. Liz Truss does not know anything about politics. The only reason she's in power is because she's been saying the right things about China and Russia. And the military-industrial complex took note, and they said, you know what, let's get her in charge, because this woman will make us money. So let's, she'll listen to what we have to do. She'll listen to what we have to say. She's the WEF's dream. She's the deep state's dream. She's been saying the right things to the right people, but she knows nothing about politics. Every time she opens her mouth, that she doesn't know what she's talking about. And now she thinks by signing checks worth 500, 600 billion will get UK out of this misery. But
nice try.
All she's doing is putting UK into the same trajectory as Japan, where Japan has got
deflation.
I think, their economy has been stagnant for 20 years. It's not been growing because Japan has got huge debt. They have got a debt to GDP ratio, the highest in the world. I think it's over 250% or something it's gone to. And Britain is heading along that route, because when you have a lot of debt, you can't make any money as a country. You got to have to pay back in interest. It's like if you get a mortgage, for example, if you get a mortgage and on top of that you get another loan, you can't save any money because you got to pay your mortgage every month. You got to pay your loan every month, and by the time you look at your wallet and you see how much money you got end of the month, you'll realize you've got nothing. You've got no money left because all the money is going on interest. And if you borrow that much amount of money, you're going to have to pay interest on it. And you can imagine how much interest that's going to be, at least 200-300 billion, especially with the interest rates rising as well. It's crazy. It's crazy times, Alex.
Okay, so this last comment here by Bobby said Zelensky just went on the Wall Street on a Zoom call. I remember that. That's absolutely insanity. A guy that's in a war zone goes on to Wall Street talking about bringing companies public. I mean, just absolutely bonkers. So just this last comment here, when will Alex organize Let's Talk China? If you see over into the far back there, that's our new studio just around the corner there, that's currently being fitted out for the show. I want to thank everybody for coming onto the program today. We're going to end this off on a little bit of a somber note, and our condolences to the United Kingdom and everybody there today as they lost their queen. That's it from AJ and I here. That's it for me, AJ. How about you? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's great from my side. Thanks all for
Okay.
listening. I just want to give a great shout out and thanks to all my moderators. They've been great. They're always every single time we do live chat, Alex. They're always there. I really appreciate the help that you guys are giving me. All the help you've given me and Alex. Really appreciate the help. The support and help is by you guys. It's amazing, and there's a lot of regulars that come onto this channel as well, listen to us, and I think it's really great that you guys come on and support us and listen to us. I mean, that's really means a lot to myself and Alex.
Well, thanks everybody, and thank you for the YouTube viewers as well as our Facebook viewers, which we connected here in the show. We have over 1.7 or 8 million Facebook. I don't know if they're called subscribers. Sorry, I'm not a big Facebook guy, but if you guys like our channels, visit the links in the description below. I'm Alex from Reporterfy Media, and of course, collaborating here with iChongqing and PTE. We're going to end it off here, guys. Our condolences to everybody and the wonderful Queen Elizabeth who just passed away. Thank you, guys. Take care. We'll see you in the comment box below. Have yourself a great day wherever you guys are.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.